of you guys know me as the Senior Chief Instructor Scott Flint, and during our COVID-19 shutdown I thought maybe I could teach you guys a few things that'd be kind of fun to do. And this involves one of my favorite weapons, the Nunchaku. So when I was starting back in 1977, the movie Enter the Dragon had come out with Bruce Lee, and he introduced this weapon. I had never seen it before and thought to myself, boy, I'd really love to learn that. And that was one of the main reasons I started doing martial arts at our Berkeley school back in 1977, because of Bruce Lee and the Nunchaku. So I'd like to give you guys some of the basics and some of the history and tell you a little bit more about the weapon, and also teach you a kata. This will be a three series video. We'll have each one about 15 minutes. And if you can show me when the schools reopen, which hopefully is very soon, maybe 1st of July, you can show me the basics and also the kata that I'm going to teach you, then I'm going to give you a really nice Nunchaku patch that you can put on your uniform. It's actually made by Mr. Thompson. It's really nice. So I want to start off by going over some of the basics with you, and I'm going to give you a couple of links on where you can order these online, but you can also make them. We're going to give you a little tutorial on how you can put these together yourself. Just really need maybe an old staff or even a broomstick, a drill, and some rope, and you can make yourself a nice pair of Nunchaku. So just to start off, I want to give you a couple of the basics that you can start to practice. Hopefully you can do about 20 minutes per day of this practice would be fine. And by the time I see you in July, probably have some really good technique. One of the first things we're going to start with is the overhand guard. So we're going to be gripping the weapon down here, and this part of the weapon is where you have the most leverage and the most power. A lot of practitioners with Nunchaku tend to grab it up here because you can move it quicker. It looks really cool. But in the traditional Kobudo, the old Okinawan system that this originated from, they were trying to teach you not for flash, but for actual use against somebody who's trying to attack you, which often back then was the Japanese army was coming in to attack the Okinawans. But when they would grab it down here, and that would give you more reach and more power. So we're going to be learning the more traditional way. So the grip would be down here on the Kikanbu. We'll show you these down here, the description, the spelling for these things. The Kikanbu, Jukanbu, the Kusari. Kusari is the rope or the chain. The Kusari Ana. Ana is just the hole. And sometimes these were rope, sometimes these were chain. But traditionally, first was rope or horsehair. So the first position we do is the overhand guard Jodan. We'll show you again down here how to spell these things. We're going to grab down here the Chukanbu, we're going to reach up over our shoulder, and we're going to grab with our other hand also on the Chikanbu down lower. So you can just practice that. You can just start with the weapon down by your hip, bring it up over your shoulder, and then catch it here. And that's the Jodan, that's the overhand guard. Very common position with the Nunchaku. So pretty easy, start here, have the other hand kind of near your armpit, and reach up over and grab. Just get used to the timing so that you can be able to grab each time. You might bounce in the beginning, especially if these are made of foam or plastic, but you want to just get used to where the weapon is. You get a feeling of where it is where you don't have to look. With any weapons training, getting to that point where you can do everything by feel without looking is critical, because that allows you to see where your opponent is and not be looking at the weapon while you're striking. So that's Jodan, going from high guard or upper guard. Later on, doing it from a cat stance, doing it from a bow stance, doing it from different fighting stances would be great. For now though, just practicing it just from feet together or a comfortable position is fine. So we're going from down and up. Now this can be used as a strike, not only a guard position, but from this position you can easily strike down. We call Kiri Oroshi, we can see the spelling down here. Come down on the guy's head. Or you can also do Yakuto, which is a rising cut or rising strike. You can let go at the top and you can strike up underneath and then grab on the other side. So that's kind of a fun thing to practice too. Once you get the Jodan, the overhand guard, you can practice letting go at the top hand and then swinging the weapon across to the other shoulder and then re-grabbing. And then practice just going from one side to the next. You grab it, other side, grab it, back and forth. And just get to a point where you just can do it by feel every time, over and over and over and over. The application again would be your ability to rapidly change sides and also to be able to go from here either with a downward strike, the Kiri-oroshi, or coming from underneath and diagonally with the Yakuto going to the other side. Now when you use these wooden ones or the metal ones, there's a high likelihood that this thing will hit you and hurt. You're probably going to hit your elbow a lot, maybe hit your head, maybe the groin. So with a lot of weapons training, you just kind of have to accept that while you're learning, you're going to get a little bit banged up. If you do get the foam ones or the plastic ones, they work great, and if they hit you, it won't hurt at all. The only detriment to those is that they're kind of bouncy. They tend to like bang around, a little bit harder to catch because they have less inertia, less momentum. So now that we have the overhand guard, the Jodan, let's learn the mid guard, Seigan. Seigan, the way we can get there, we can let go with the bottom hand, we can swing, and then catch it underneath our arm. So we're catching it between the latissimus dorsi muscle and the tricep. You don't want it to hit your underarm because that's a sensitive part of the body. You want to try to grab it a little sooner. And grabbing it near the kikanbu, near the back, is good. Grabbing it near the jukanbu here is not as good because you can't use it as readily and it's too choked. It's too close to you. You want the weapon to be close to the opponent. So going from Jodan to this mid guard, Seigan, Jodan, Seigan. And every time you go to Seigan, let your other hand come out. And that hand can be used to strike your opponent. That hand can be used to grab your opponent. That hand can be used to knock away a strike coming at you. The idea is that you don't want to be in a position where both weapons are retracted. You want one hand out, one hand back. Now from this position, the way you could strike from the mid guard, the Seigan, is you could easily strike out with a jab and then re-grab. So it's kind of like a circle. You drive out, it hits the face, and then it comes back underneath the arm. So we're going to be going out and then recapturing. So it's kind of like a circle. You go out, strikes, and then it comes back underneath. Whenever you're practicing these, going for maximum distance is very traditional. That's the traditional Kobudo way, the ancient Kobudo just means, Ko means old or ancient. Budo is the way of the fighting system or the fighting arts. So in Kobudo, you projecting your weapon out is smart. The whole reason we ever pick up any weapon is to keep someone further away, further than we can with our regular empty hand weapons. And it gives us often a leverage advantage or power advantage. The other option or idea is that if I hit somebody with my fist or my foot, it's going to hurt them. I'm going to get hurt a little bit too. The weapon though, I'm not going to feel it. But the idea of range is really critical. So when you're practicing having the weapon reach out as far as you can during a technique, whether that be the overhead strike, underhand strike, maybe it's the jab, you want to have that maximum range built in. You'll be tempted, just like with your empty hand, to make everything small because it feels good, it feels fast, it feels like you have more control. But it doesn't work. There's no power, there's no reach. It defies the whole idea of why you have a weapon in your hand. So the other thing about Nunchaku, since it's a balanced weapon, meaning that you could use either side of this weapon at any time, it's really good to practice both sides equally. So if you're right-handed, you're going to find you're doing a lot of work on your right hand. Practice on your left hand just as much so the left hand feels the same. And near the end of the series, I'll teach you how to use two weapons at the same time, which is a lot of fun. Pretty easy to do if you practice the same amount with each strike. What I'd like to ask you to do is have, every time you practice, about 20 minutes in total, every day if you can, and everything you do it 20 times. So if you're going from, say, Jodan, the overhand guard, to mid guard, Seigan, you do it 20 times. Go from here to here to here, just back and forth over and over. And then you switch to the other side, same thing. Practice just going back and forth. If you're going to do the jab from Seigan, jab, just count 20 times, back and forth, back and forth. And that's going to give you some really good Kihon. Kihon is the basics, right? The elemental part of the Nunchaku. Once you get all these Kihon or basic I teach you, you'll find that there's a natural tendency to improvise, and you'll find that it's really easy to just put together sequences that you didn't learn, that you created, that are very effective. Also, the kata will help you with that. It'll give you a way to practice your basics over and over and over. So the next video we show is going to go over how to make these. If you need to make your own pair, we'll give you some links on how where to order them, and give you a lot more Kihon or basics. Also adding some ashi sabaki. Ashi sabaki is just footwork, how to move your feet with the Nunchaku. But for now, just practicing these basic steps, the Jodan, the overhand guard, the Seigan, the underhand guard, and practicing the jab where we strike and then come back is going to be great. So one more we can do today, we call it Keisa-giri. Keisa-giri is just, giri means to cut or strike. Keisa is a 45-degree angle. The Buddhist monks used to wear a kimono. It had a red stripe part of the kimono, kind of like we do for our teacher's geese, and they call that a keisa. So keisa-giri follows that line. In all weapons training, regardless of what weapon it is, even with a knife, use a lot of these keisa-giri, these diagonal attacks, because they work the best. So the keisa-giri is really simple. All you want to do is from the overhand guard, Jodan, is take your Nunchaku and go diagonally across, striking the head, go across and down to your hip. That's all it is. It's just a diagonal strike. So we're going to start high, we're going to go across. At the end of that, let it bounce off of your left hip, or whatever hip you just struck toward, bounce it back to your other hip, and then bring it back over your shoulder. So it's really just basically 3 moves. We go across 1, back 2, and then 3, we reset. So we're going across, back, reset. Again, trying to hold near the kikambu. The MONOUCHI, or the area that we strike with most often with the Nunchaku, is going to be about this last third, because that's furthest away from you, can generate the most power. You'll actually be trying to use this edge because the edge is sharp, it's more focused. So to practice that again, the keisa-giri, you're going across diagonally, then over to your hip, and then back over. You want to add a little foot technique to it. If you have it over on your right shoulder, you could have your left foot step in with the keisa-giri into basically a hard bow stance. And then stay in the hard bow when you bounce it to your hip. Remain in the hard bow as long as you can until the very end of this upward motion, and then come back to a cat stance, to a left cat. So you step into a bow, swing keisa-giri, come back to your hip, back to a cat, cross, and back. And that's about it. That's going to be some really good Kihon basics for this lesson. And remember that if you can practice these and really get them down, especially the kata that we're going to learn, the SHIHOTO-SO-NO is fighting 4 people. We're going to learn that on the 3rd video. And when you see me, you say, Mr. Flint, can you check me through my Kihon and through SHIHOTO-SO-NO. I'll watch you, and if you have it down, I'm going to give you that Nunchaku patch. That's all, you guys. Hopefully we're going to see all of you really soon, and feel free to send me any questions on this. I'll put the email down here at the bottom, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again.